Here we go. Most critical
I
review.
go through. Yeah, that's the
Do you
first
mind if we
one.
do this? We can
No,
also
no,
do
it's
this
fine.
on Pints with Aquinas.
No, this is fine.
Really, guys? I look for your podcast because you're supposed to lead our parish mission, and kudos for plugging amazing parish. Not cool to drop an F-bomb 10 seconds later.
Sure did.
No matter how upset you are about the scandal in the church, please open up the New Testament sometime soon. Have a blessed day.
I mean, he's not wrong about a lot of that. I assume it's a he.
Well, I mean...
Okay, we got to read this one. Jerks for Jesus isn't a thing. Only time I felt strongly enough to interact with catching foxes on social media with what I felt was a pretty polite and thoughtful, though slightly critical Facebook comment. Luke responded rudely, reminded me of a life lesson I learned in my time at Franciscan, but apparently forgot. It's never worth your while to listen to blowhards who publicly evangelize to people where they're at, but can't emotionally regulate enough to have decent person-to-person interactions. Online counts. Jesus can see the internet too. If you want Catholics who tackle hard-hitting issues but also embody Christ-like attitude, look elsewhere. Anyway.
Wait, yeah.
But is there more?
Oh, yeah, because I've read this several times.
If you can't handle criticism, even generally polite, constructive criticism, don't take up a hobby that invites it.
She's not wrong.
No, that's a good.
She's
a good
not
line.
wong, but like the problem is
How
that
do you know it's a she? You know
because I know exactly what conversation this person was talking about. And to be fair, like I don't know if I completely agree that it was a polite little thing.
Yeah.
But it was after an episode. So this is the weird part I think about podcasts is sometimes people don't understand because she's right about like don't do this if you can't take the heat.
Yeah.
I'm like, but to do the kind of podcast that we do is really vulnerable.
It really is. That's what I love about you, Luke. You're so vulnerable. Like you say stuff where the yeah, no, but I think people really appreciate that. Like you don't have to totally crystallize your thought and your opinion on a particular topic in order to talk about it. That's one of the beautiful things about podcasts. People can think through things in real time.
Yeah.
We don't all have to have a fast and fart opinion on every topic imaginable.
Which is why I like I like our show is at least an hour, and I don't ever want it to be a thing where it's 20 minutes to a half hour because I want the freedom to like change my mind during the show.
Yeah.
I want the freedom to like
and that's
change.
And me and Luke, the reason why
I got to do the same for me now that I've done it.
me and Luke are external processors, right? So we have to talk things out, which makes for a better podcast. I mean, if you had two people who are internal processors and they just kind of think quietly and then state their crafted opinion, but we literally, I mean, we change our minds during the show.
Yeah.
And I think so like that so that episode in particular was a little bit I don't remember like what it was on. I think it was like race things or it was the ones about the Mexican stuff at the border and kids being detained.
Yeah.
And we were trying to like, and you kind of went a little bit against what was like the woke response to that, if you will.
Sure.
And it was really uncomfortable to have to go down that road, but it's like at least we're trying to like get to the truth of what's going on here. Yeah. And we were just bombarded with stuff, and I saw her thing, and I was like, and it kind of was like, and so I've learned to try to, and I'm sorry, person, I almost stared at the camera. I apologize.
No, that's the one that's.
We are both
You're
sorry.
wrong. I'm right. You're smart. I'm dumb. You're attractive. I'm not good looking.
But you're still wrong.
And so I've had to learn that I can't because I want to engage about when we have tough stuff. Yeah. But it's it is kind of difficult to like when it comes from a vulnerable place.
Yeah.
Like, I think I probably, to be honest, would have to wait a couple months.
Yeah, like an analogy I'm thinking of is if I were to get up and give a talk on the dogmas surrounding the Blessed Virgin Mary, or a talk where I share my personal testimony, if I get criticism for that second one, that's going to hurt a lot more than the one where I'm just giving a speech. Because I'm sharing myself.
Yeah, and Bishop Barron talked about, in reference to the whole Cov Catholic thing, he said he was, I'm not going to state any opinion on like what actually happened. He said, I want to talk about what the reaction was and how demonic it was. And his whole point was...
Did he use that phrase?
Yeah. And his whole he said it was a work of Satan and all this stuff. But his whole phrase or critique around that was, in the past, if you were angry at an editorial, you wrote a letter to the editor. You had to think about it. You had to write. You had to put in an envelope, put a stamp on it. I mean, that would take me out of the game.
Provides a bit of detachment, I think, in the long run.
But now it's unreflective comboxing.
And that's what's happening right now while we're doing this video. Yeah. This video is going to premiere, and so people are commenting literally right now as we're talking and can just spew whatever they want to spew.
Yeah.
All right, let's get to some hate mail for me here.
I know. You have as many 1-star reviews as we have.
Well, I actually think it's a badge.
11.
Yeah, I think it's a badge of honor to have 1-star reviews because it means you're reaching people.
Yeah.
Who, you know, whereas I might just be reaching. What am I doing? Oh yeah, here we go.
Which is with a touch. I can't stand all the 2,281 5-star reviews.
Here we go. Not really that profound. Do not expect this podcast to take you beyond the level of a high school philosophy class. This guy follows Peter Kraft in his blind worship of Thomas Aquinas. For them, Aquinas is always right. If you are a conservative Catholic, you might like it, though.
Man, Leslie, punch him below the belt with that Peter Kraft comment.
Matt Fradd is a staunch advocate for recovery from porn addiction, and it's really apparent because the topic of porn and sexuality comes up way more often than probably needs to. This show is great when it actually focuses on Aquinas. Okay, I don't think that's an appropriate critique. I think it's wrong because I barely ever touch upon pornography in Pints with Aquinas.
But here's the deal. That's not a 2-star review. That's like
it's weird because
hang on, why do you only see 1 star here?
Because you probably only have one.
Because that's the comments critical. Yeah. And so, like, here's the thing too. I think with a lot of ours, very rarely do we get people who say, I don't like the format of this show. It does happen, but it's always like, because it's like it's not about like the actual like show itself. It's a thing that you say that they don't like.
Yeah.
You know, and so it's kind of just like, well.
See, think about this. Matt has spent his years cultivating this. Production quality is amateurish. Discussion of Aquinas is good, but sometimes it isn't worth listening through a whole episode in short. I like the idea of Pints with Aquinas, but not as Matt Fradd implements it. It's like, hey, here's your life work.
I like Matt Fradd's idea, but not the way that Matt Fradd
it's like he's saying, I like the
idea
idea of Pints with Aquinas. I just rather Matt not be there.
Yeah.
That's fair enough. Well, I tell you, one thing that's difficult for me is, that's been honestly like a difficult thing for me to try and reconcile is, I'm not an expert in Aquinas, and I'm not an expert in philosophy, and I wouldn't even consider myself an intellectual. And so I do have people who are coming who probably shouldn't be listening to my podcast. Like, they should probably be listening to the Thomistic Institute or something different. And so having to like come to grips with that and know my lane has been a period of growth for me.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Has that challenged or changed how you consume other content?
Oh, that's a good question.
Luke's a natural.
So what do you mean by that? Like what I'm going for when I go to a particular...
I think there are times now when I hear a podcast and if I don't like the way that they go, I'm not as critical of it.
Yo, thanks for watching. You can watch the entire episode on YouTube if you want. You can listen to it at The Matt Fradd Show by subscribing on iTunes or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And feel free to support me, patreon.com/MattFradd.